Okay, so last week we were talking about the sins I put in the second category, and I didn't completely get through all that topic. So there were some more things I wanted to say. So I talked about how God would feel about gays, right? And then I just wanted to make a mention of drug addicts too, right? Like, for instance, all of us here have been affected by the drug addiction. I had an aunt that died from drug addiction, and I think technically that's how my mother had died, right? And and I believe that's how your sister died, which would be everybody else in this vast congregation's aunt, right? And and I think that I guess the reason that I explain how I feel about people that I like that have these sins is I think that we're dehumanizing people in the way that we are focusing on identities and focusing on what's popular and trying to be in the majority. Okay, so I think people are saying, like if we go with the gays, people are saying, I hate them or I like them. And there's no middle ground to understand, okay, I love all people and I believe God's way is better. So the reason I used Kennedy Walsh as an example of my feelings is because I sincerely believe that every man on the planet would like her if they saw her. And if you're true to yourself, you would know this. And if you could see someone that you would like as much as her, then you would realize, okay, I don't hate these people that are doing something that I think is wrong.
Right.
And I actually think if you're a guy and you see her and you say you don't like her, I think you're lying to yourself. But needless to say, if we go with drug addicts, right? Now we live in a state where cost of living is high. It's not as high as some of the states near us, but it's way higher than it is. Like we live in New Hampshire, and I think it's higher than most states. I mean, maybe Massachusetts, Vermont, and Rhode Island have higher cost of living, as well as New York and New Jersey. California, Florida does, and that's about it. There might be other cities that do, like maybe Illinois does, but I don't think. I mean, maybe Chicago does, but I don't think Illinois does. Like, we have a high cost of living, so I have a seasonal business, and so this causes you to focus on, like to get labor, you're going to have to get people that had been to jail, have been a drug addict, something like that. Now, some of the, there's one drug addict in particular that, I've always had to do the hardest job myself. This guy is trying to better himself, and he learned how to do my job. So then last year, I had a pulled ligament all year because of how hard I work. I had almost the exact same load, and then he went and took over and did all the hard work for me at the end of the year, which is why I did not have a pulled ligament this year. I've seen someone that's a drug addict stand through 93-degree temperatures, to help us secure our business. I've seen them. The day that I helped the handicapped woman, one other guy that was a drug addict volunteered to help me that day. Although what I needed his help on, he couldn't do, but he came in the car to try to help me get her in the car. Neither one of us could get her in the car. This is why I had to push her for 4 miles, right? And so in the case of my mother, she had bad sides to her. She suffered from mental illness, but she was also did a lot of saintly things, like she did like what mothers do. Like we'd go out to dinner, she'd buy food at Kentucky Fried Chicken and give me the breast and take the wing, the thighs herself. Or I almost killed myself on cube steak. And I said, I'm not eating cube steak ever again. So she'd buy me a nice steak and get cube steak for herself. And then as I get older, she died young, and I realized I need to do this with her. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time because she died at a young age, because of, drug addiction. But like the love and the feelings that she has, the virtues that these people have. So if somebody has a self-destructive trait, it doesn't mean that they don't have any humanity. It doesn't mean that they're not lovable. It doesn't mean that they're not capable of reform. It just simply means that they're human. Okay? Mm-hmm. So then, the role of a Christian is redemption, and redemption is something that we all desperately need. We need it just as bad as the drug addict does, as the person that's living a self-destruct, as a gay person, even as a violent person, as a vengeful person, as a thief. Okay, everybody, and we are all capable of committing the same exact sins that non-Christian people are too. Like Solomon says at the end of Ecclesiastes, I can't remember the exact wording. I'm going to be paraphrasing, if you forgive me for paraphrasing. But he basically said that wealth comes from circumstance and chance. Do you remember the exact words?
No.
Okay, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Not only is that 100% true, but I think mental health does too. I think stability does too. So if you're say if you're a confident person, okay, like I learned, there's someone here in our congregation that I absolutely love, that had a different mentality than the way I thought people needed to have, and then I learned, and then I'm like, okay, this person's a good person, and okay, this person's wrong, right? So then when you study like personality structures, someone like me realizing you're good and wrong makes you more mentally healthy, right? Well, not everybody has someone in their life that's fantastic that they think is wrong, So it's like that gave me a chance to grow. And then I spent like a year hanging out with the Mormons, and it was like I studied their book, and then I learned where they're wrong. But you know what? You see people condemning Mormons, and one of the biggest mistakes they're doing is they're saying they're bad. They're not bad. You know what I'm saying? They go around helping people. Their marriages statistically last longer than everybody else's. They obey the Bible more than the evangelicals do, right? But they have things that are wrong. So this was like a circumstance that helped me to grow mentally, was having a person in my life and then having an experience with these great people that did things that I thought was totally wrong, gave me the fortunate thing of growing mentally now the same thing wouldn't help someone in another personality, but the point is, I've heard other people say that if you were born in America, you won the lottery in life, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason they say that is because you can have a house, you can have unlimited food, you can have unlimited opportunity with jobs, whereas if you were born in a third world country, you may not have transportation, you may not be mobile, you may not have job opportunities, right? Well, we're still human, whether we were born in the first world or born in the third world. So sin is a similar thing. Like if everybody that you care about is doing drugs, you're more likely to be doing drugs than if everybody that you care about is not doing drugs.
Right.
If you're abused and a bunch of gay people treat you like gold and everybody else treats you like dirt, you might become gay. If you say a cuss word when you're a kid and everyone starts laughing, then you could grow up swearing, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's foolhardy. So on the response to sin, I think it's important to recognize that whatever sin a person is doing, you and I are capable of doing it within reason. Okay, I mean, there's extreme sins that I'm not going to include in this category. Like, not everybody's going to be a mass murderer. Not everyone's going to be a terrorist. Things of that nature. But like, I think of Solomon, and I think the most similar modern equivalent would be Elvis, right? Now, we'd like to think that we would not make the same mistakes that Elvis and Solomon did. Mm-hmm. What if let's just, instead of thinking of Solomon, because he was several thousand years ago, let's just imagine Elvis, right? Okay, so Elvis was gluttonous, Elvis was an adulterer, Elvis was a little bit of an opportunist, right? Okay, these things are sins. Okay, so if you're a friend of Elvis, if you were alive during his time, he knew about Christ, as a Christian, you could condemn those behaviors, right? But what if you walk into a room and every single girl
starts screaming and crying?
Right. I mean,
that could explode your ego with that.
Well, okay, like I think if I wasn't attracted to the girls, I could overcome it, right? Mm-hmm. But what if they're the most beautiful girls in the world?
Right.
I'm not sure that I could have done better.
Right.
And then everybody in the world likes you and you have unlimited money.
Yeah.
I think could get easy to overeat.
Yeah.
And then he was starting to lose his fame as he got a little bit older, so then he took drugs and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, I'm not guilty of the sins that he's guilty of, but I could certainly see myself being guilty of it. I was also not in the same circumstance.
Right.
Okay. So if I'm never going to know, but if I was in the same circumstance, I kind of think I would have done the same thing that he did. Mm. I would love to say that I wouldn't.
Right.
But I believe that I would have.
Yeah, it's arrogant to think that we're superior, we wouldn't fall to the same temptation another person does.
Yeah, and in the ancient world of Solomon, I think it was an equivalent to Elvis. Like he had all the wisdom to know not to do this, right? Mm-hmm. But when you think about the queen, whatever her name was, not the Queen of Sheba, I know she was one of them, but I'm thinking the one that hurt him the most was the Egyptian queen that he married, right? Mm-hmm. Think of a young Monica Bellucci, if she looked like that.
Yeah.
I could make the temple to the false god.
Right. Anything else you want?
Right. And so, so then Jesus was offered all of this by the devil.
Right.
And he didn't, because he didn't sin. Okay. I believe that Jesus is the only person that, could can't be tempted. Now, once we know Jesus and once we get reformed, then through the power of his Spirit, we can then do what Jesus did.
Yeah.
Okay. And as I mentioned Paul, I mentioned him in the negative sense that he was a murderer. But once Paul got converted, he couldn't be bought. He couldn't be tempted.
Right.
He said he had a weakness, and we don't know whether it be physical or spiritual, right? But Paul described.
He took his stand to the death.
He took his stand to the death, and he also did it more than once. Like God brought him back to life when he was stoned.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until he was beheaded, that he finally died. And so correct me if you think I'm wrong. Like I say, this is open discussion. I think when we get into a place where we fear people that are different, I think it dehumanizes them.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a tool that's often manipulated for the benefit of some opportunistic leader. We get somebody to fear, we get them to hate them, we use them as a scapegoat. Now we have a platform to exalt ourselves.
Yeah, so like we made reference to the shootings. Like if you take the first one that was in the news, you take Renee Good, how she lived her lifestyle does not tell you her feelings for her son, does not justify her being shot.
Right.
So I think when we bring up the immorality of her lifestyle, what are we trying to say? Are we trying to say that justifies
we're trying
murder?
to say that she's a less valuable person. We don't need to care about her death.
Right. Well, so let's go back to my analogy with Kennedy Walsh. Someone shot her, I would not be very happy. You know what I'm saying? And that doesn't mean I agree with her.
Right.
But I think her life is extremely valuable. Now, because of my own vanity, I value her more than others. Does this make me the worst person on the planet? Should I be shot because I value her more than other?
Depends on who you ask, I guess.
Well, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No.
I mean, I recognize that that's a weakness of mine, but I think that there's strength in the weakness too.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so And then I think too, the understanding of sin has changed since the church age has ended. Okay, and so when the church age first ended, people felt like the church age was stifling to them, and they're now free to enjoy life, right?
Right.
And so we put beauty and entertainment above God's word. And I think there was a degree that we did this during the church age. I think this is part of the reason the church age ended. I think this is part of the natural flesh, but this part of the flesh got exaggerated, right? Okay. All of my struggles with sin stem from this age. I am guilty of this, as everybody that was alive in the 70s and the 80s were, right? Then I stopped being guilty of the subsequent sins, though, okay? So then somewhere near the late 80s, early 90s, I like to make it simple and say Bush to Bush, because, it's so close, because like the first Bush became president in 88. It might have actually been when Clinton was president. I don't have hopefully someday I can document the exact shift, but I don't have it documented. But somewhere in the 90s, people then started putting money above entertainment and above goodness. And then somewheres near the Obama era, or maybe a little before the Obama era, people started putting things that they were afraid of above money, and then money above entertainment, and entertainment above goodness. And I think the October 7th crisis in Israel, we're now making a shift, and I don't think people that grew up during the fear era are totally aware that there's a new thing going on, but we're now putting what we hate above what we fear. Mm-hmm. Okay, and what we're biased against above, but we're putting what we fear above money, and we're putting money above entertainment, so on and so forth. So what's interesting, if we go to the first thing that I was guilty of, I'm still guilty of it, right? Same reason why my favorite lesbian is Kennedy Walsh, okay? She's entertaining and she's beautiful, right? Okay, so if you value people that are beautiful above people that are good, the thing that I didn't realize until recently is that you're not thinking this thought consciously, right? But in your subconscious, you're actually saying that it is morally superior to be attractive than to be good. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Right.
So it's not the worst thing in the world, because some good people, some beautiful people are morally good. Mm-hmm. Okay? And then like Elvis, we was using him as an example before. Okay, we talk about his sin. But Elvis would see an old lady looking at a car. He'd say, "Do you want that car?" She'd say, "Yep." And he'd buy the car. Elvis went to his local church and then paid for every person that didn't have a car to get a taxi ride to church every single day. And I can't, the stories of Elvis, he's seen these two guys on the side of the road getting in a fist fight. And then he gets out of the car and they say, "Oh, this is the king." And he says, "You guys need to stop." And then they stop because Elvis came out and told them to stop.
Yeah.
Elvis sacrificed his fame to join the army. Elvis was good to his mother, and so I think that it was somewhat, up until the last 5 years or so, I think goodness was part of what the entertainers used, to create, an image for themselves. But now I remember in the 90s, my business failed and I was broke, with the exception of maybe the 91, 92, because my business started to fail in 93. So from 93 all the way up till, 2010, I think, right? Yeah, 93 to 2010, I was broke, right? And so during this money era, you're the only person here that remembers it, but people did think you're immoral if you're poor, if you remember.
Yeah.
I remember, if I couldn't afford to pitch in on something, people condemn me up and down. I remember if somebody was successful, then they were viewed as a saint.
Yeah.
And then, part of the reason is that people that had money could donate more to charity and other such things.
Yeah, or if you were poor, you viewed, it must be something, you must be lazy, or you must be defective, or you're just not trying. I had people in my life that were paranoid because we didn't have money, that, everybody looked down on them. Even if they didn't, it was such a thing that you feared it.
Right. And so therefore, what does that say about your morality? It says that morality is the more money you have, the better you
person
are. Right. So then that one is a little worse than just being attractive and entertaining, because when it's attractive and entertaining, you can actually entertain someone to make them happy. You can entertain kids. You can entertain people in your family, right? And there's actually some goodness involved in entertaining, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now with money, there's less. However, there's still some goodness involved in money, because in order to have a successful business, you got to be honest with your customers. You got to be good to your workers. You got to focus on what people want. And ironically, for the most part, the most successful people, contrary to popular belief, learn to not be too greedy.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because I like to use the analogy of Rolls-Royce versus Ford. Okay, Rolls-Royce maximized the profits, sold to the king, sold to the rich people. Henry Ford said, he made a car on a low profit margin that the masses could afford, and he actually based the pricing on people's salary of what they could afford, right?
Right.
And then that made him one of the richest men ever of all time, selling. The same thing with Roy Kroc, with McDonald's success, right?
Right.
Is McDonald's was never high quality food. It's changed since COVID. They became a little too expensive, but before COVID, it was like the cheapest place to buy a meal.
Yeah.
And so, the guy that founded it has long since been dead. He became, loaded, for helping people. So there is some character that's involved, not 100% of the time, but 80+% of the time, there's some character involved in becoming wealthy.
Yeah.
Then society then made a shift in the 2000s towards fear. And so then the morality then changed towards, I'm not going to do something that can harm me. And that's what's good. And then you see like the parents, I'm not going to let my kids do this, I'm not going to let my kids do that. Like people, I see these memes online where people say, yeah, when I was a kid, what my parents said to me at the end of school day was goodbye. Like now they got these algorithms with these dots on it. This is where this kid is, this is where that kid.
Trackers on them.
Yeah, they get trackers on the phones and everything else, right? And I think that age discrimination is based on a fear, because some older people dated some younger people, abducted them and abused them. So then now we say it's immoral to date somebody that's older than you, or it's immoral to date someone that's younger than you, right? Then you have, when we have the fear of, if you watch a TV show, if the kid is away from the parents for 2 minutes, then the psychopathic lunatic from hell abducts them. So we have this fear, like it's immoral if your kid is out of your sight. So like when I was a kid, we used to walk to the bus stop. Well, now they got laws that your parent has to be standing there at the bus stop when you get on,
Right.
out of fear that something.
Yeah, the bus driver could be liable if you got kidnapped.
Right, and I think I heard stories where the kid was at the bus stop without the parent, and the bus driver refused, because it's a law,
Right.
they refused to let the kid get on the bus, right? And then there's, I could use some help with this. There's a lot of morality discriminatory things that are based on fear. I'm trying not to get caught up in the new one, but like we have the political fears, like okay, if you associate with somebody that is of a different culture than you, then there's a problem that could be bad. Or if you take feminism. A girl could be afraid to date a guy, even if he's a good guy, that has traditional values, because this might harm her career. Or someone could meet somebody that they like that their friends don't like.
Yeah.
So then they're afraid, if I date you, I can't date you because my friends aren't going to like you, or my family's not going to like you, right? And believe it or not, when you actually discriminate like that, okay, So if I know you're a good person and everybody else I know doesn't like you, what does this say about your character if I'm not going? I got chemistry with you. We got a million things in common. We get along great, and nobody likes me or you, whoever we want to make. The what does it say about your character if you're the person with the clout that you reject that person?
It says all you care about is what makes you look good. You don't care about someone else's character.
Right. And what does it say about your morality?
It's limited to your acceptance in your group.
So what you're saying is being accepted in the group is a higher moral
Right.
standing than actually accepting a good person,
Right.
right? So I don't think people realize that this is what they've done
No.
because it's a
It
gradual,
just happens.
and it gets so vain that people do things just for likes on social media.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, there's a verse in the Bible that says, where your heart is, there is your treasure also.
Right.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is that your treasure is your morality.
Yeah.
I want you to think about that for 2 seconds here.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I get your point. No, it's what you value. If you want to say that's your morality, I can't see that that's wrong.
I think it is. So if we go back to the actual church age, morality was based on righteousness or sin.
Mm-hmm.
So we have slowly moved away from that. Now we have the extremes. Okay, so for instance, giving money to the homeless is still viewed as righteous, and physically hitting someone is still viewed as sin. So on the extreme ends of the sin spectrum, society still, honors that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you go into the middle ground, I actually think, and I challenge you guys to disagree, or if you agree, support it. I think on the lower level sins, we've shifted the morality away from righteousness and sin, and we've shifted it to what we're afraid of.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely agree.
And we're no longer concerned with righteousness.
Right.
Fear trumps goodness.
Yeah, and I think the step before that was what can I get trumped goodness, but now it's moved from what can I get to what can I not get. What do I need to avoid?
So I think the reason why people don't see any benefits in a Bible study such as this is because it does not connect to their moral base.
Right.
The reason that people don't like having a spiritual discussion is because it doesn't connect to their moral base.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's going to get an interest in people is talking about something that they should be afraid of.
Yep.
I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
And so what happens is because these fears have become the moral base. I said this, I don't know how many of you remember, I swear I predicted this, but we didn't long before we did the YouTube channel. But I said if you continually reject people because of your social discrimination, you devalue people. And when
Right.
you devalue people, I say the next step is that their life isn't important.
Right.
Now, I said this about 10 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're starting to see that now. And then the morality is challenged in context. Okay, I think the latest thing that's a challenge to understanding sin and morality is the current war with Iran. Okay? Because people are trying to say either, because now we're saying what we're afraid of and what we hate is bad. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas what we did in the old days is we said that life is important.
Right.
Okay? So I am personally against the war in Iran, and I am personally against the entire government of Iran, and I'm against Iran, I'm against their religion, I'm against everything they stand for. Does that make sense?
Well, it does if you analyze the situation.
Right. So then, as a Christian, I support Israel. And I empathize with why they want to attack Iran, okay?
Right.
Because Iran has vowed to kill them, to develop a nuclear bomb, destroy the whole country, and Iran funds every enemy of Israel.
Right.
An enemy, and Iran was responsible for the 1,200 murders that started the most recent war.
Right.
So I've got no judgment for an Israeli that supports this war.
Right.
Okay? If I was an Israeli and I knew 100 people that died because of the Iranians, I would support the war.
Right.
Okay? Now, the reason I'm against the war, it's not because I'm against war in Iran, okay? It's that we were trying to negotiate peace
Right.
and we started to get progress.
Right.
Then we indiscriminately bombed them in the middle of peace negotiations. And then because I am not an Israeli and I don't know people that died from them, I can look at it more objectively. And I'm saying, okay, hundreds of people are now dying that had nothing to do with this war, that had nothing to do with funding the terrorists. These were people that just 2 months ago were protesting the people that were there's people that are dying today that were protesting the people that caused the deaths in Israel.
Right.
Okay, so I think that we're uprooting and destroying their lives, but I also think strategically what we're doing is dumb, is we're hurting people all around the world by creating a recession for no reason. We are also destroying the power that we did have, because if we bomb people in the middle of diplomatic negotiations, then what leverage do we have in the future when we negotiate? Isn't the point of the negotiation to be that both sides have something to gain from the negotiation?
Yep.
So I think we hurt the ability to negotiate. And what I think where we are the most powerful army in the world is, I think that we should have waited till Iran actually became a threat. And if they actually had direct plans to drop a nuclear bomb, or if they fully developed it, or if they actually were continuing to fund terrorists, then I think we should have gone to war.
Right.
But I think we were negotiating something good, and they said that we actually had a peace deal. So
Right.
so then you got to say, okay, well, I want to save Israel. I want to save the Jews. I love Israel. I understand what they're doing. What's God's view of this? Well, God's view as Christians is that we put down our arms, that we turn the other cheek, that we do not harm other people, that we don't get revenge, that we don't sue people, right? So therefore, although I favor the Israelis over the Iranians, and I actually value the lives of the Israelis more than I do just about anyone else because of my Christian heritage, as a Christian, you don't bomb people.
Right.
You don't say that my political ideology is more important than another human being's life.
Right.
Even the little thing that we did in Venezuela, because we want the oil, it sounds all great on paper. Okay, so now we got more control over Venezuela and we got rid of the dictator, right? Okay, we also killed a couple hundred people died. Now it's not a lot. It's still a couple hundred.
Yeah,
If you imagine how many people live in this neighborhood, it's like the whole neighborhood died.
Yeah, somebody's mother, somebody's daughter.
And I don't know how many people in Iran have died.
1,800.
1,800? I was going to guess a couple thousand. Okay. So 1,800 people have died already. And there's talks that they just brought in 5,000 troops to start the ground war, right? Well, they're not all going to live, the 5,000. So therefore, it's not, so the morality is not what side that you're on. I think this is where people make a mistake. And I think the reason people do this is because they're basing it on what they're afraid of and what they hate. So if morality was based on what you're afraid of and what you hate, then you pick a side. You're either totally against the war because you hate the people that are starting the war, or you're in favor of the war because you hate the people that are being killed, right? But morality based on goodness is the golden rule. Love your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
Okay? So therefore, there's no question that Iran is probably the worst government on the planet, and we can all agree that they shouldn't have advanced weapons because it would be bad and dangerous. Okay?
Right.
However, we went and started buying oil from Russia, which is being used to kill innocent people
Right.
in Ukraine,
Yeah.
and people are dying that did not have to die.
Right.
Now, it's possible that my way of thinking, more people would have died, because I would have done
Well,
nothing.
we don't know because we didn't let the negotiation have a chance.
I would have waited until it's inevitable
Right.
and then started a war.
Yes, the negotiation failed.
Right.
Then you can stop them.
Right. But the reason for the negotiation is to save
To
lives.
avoid the war.
It's not, the purpose of the negotiation is not to have your agenda done perfectly,
right.
because you're not the king of the universe and
Right.
you're not God.
Right.
So we would love, all of us, for that whole entire government to just leave the country of Iran. Okay.
Right.
However,
That's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
They're not leaving.
So there could be millions of people that die
Right.
as a result of us wanting our way.
Right.
And if we use the morality of righteousness versus sin, then we would not be in favor of indiscriminately killing people.
Right. Yeah. Because not only we're supposed to love, our neighbors ourselves, but we're also supposed to love our enemies.
Right. And once again, in my personal life, I don't have the opportunity to witness to people too much. I try this channel to be witnessing. I hope people get something from it. But the closest thing I've had to success in the last 5 years of witnessing is to a Muslim.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Sure.
Sure.
And so they're people too.
Right.
And the Christians aren't really Christians either.
Right.
But to be a light to the world, we can. I made this joke that you liked. We might have said it last week, but the bombing of mankind worketh not the righteousness of God.
Amen. Yeah.
And so because we've fallen from the right understanding of morality, correct me if you think I'm wrong, I believe millions and millions of people in the world believe that it is God's will to
Yes.
kill people
Yes.
on both sides.
Yep.
Okay, the Israelis think that this is going to bring the Messiah, and if we're on their side, they need to know the Messiah has already come.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Christians think this, some of them, not all of them, but some of the Christians think this is going to bring the Messiah as
Right.
well.
Yeah.
They think that we need to expedite the rapture by bombing people because these are prophecies in
And
Scripture.
then the Muslims think they need to kill all the infidels.
And the Muslims think they need to kill the infidels. So the majority of people in America, fortunately, have not devolved to a place where they actually think killing people is okay. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I think somewhere is between 20 and 30% of the people, or 30 to 35% of the people, support this war.
Mm-hmm.
But whether you support it or not, so being against the war does not mean that you're in favor of Iran in
Right.
any way, shape, or
Yeah.
form.
Some people are just against it because of the waste of money.
I'm against that too.
Yeah.
We're $40 billion in debt,
Right.
and we had a fiasco in Iraq, which borders Iran,
Right.
and Iraq was a lot easier than Iran
Yeah.
to overcome.
Yeah.
And so, how did we not learn from that? But that's on a different topic.
Yeah.
Here we're talking about morality, right?
Right.
But the moral issue is that trying to kill people that you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we almost bombed Cuba. We don't like Cubans. They're not as bad as the Iranians, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is that justification for destroying a country? We don't like them, and they've got allies that we don't like. Is it a big surprise that with all the countries in the world that there'd be some that are disassociated from us?
Mm-hmm. Right.
With our $40 trillion debt, do we think that we can use military might to get everybody to like us?
It never worked before.
We don't have the money to go around bombing the countries. Now, these dictators are bad people. I think Maduro shouldn't have been there. And then Iran, I think, is way worse than Venezuela.
Right.
And I think there's immoral people in Mexico, immoral people in Colombia. But I guess I don't think that we should be killing people. I think as Christians, we should try to convert them spiritually.
Right.
And what the Bible says is that as the Christian age progresses, the less success that you will have in this process. and near the end of time there'll be no faith on earth, and God will, resurrect us on Judgment Day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it says when the gospel is published in all the world, then the end will come. He doesn't say then a second advent will come, then the military needs to kill the enemies. And the one thing I'm surprised at, from a moral standpoint, is 20 years ago, we saw the Muslims get to this place. 'Cause, they were doing suicide bombers, they were doing all the terrorists. The jihad, and I think Christian nationalism has created a Christian version of jihad. Now, it's in its early stages,
Right.
so we're demonizing the Muslims because of their jihad with our own jihad.
Yep.
Okay, so that's not taking the higher ground.
Right.
So if you want examples of the higher ground, it was how Paul responded to getting stoned. It was how Jesus responded to the Romans and the Sanhedrin.
Mm-hmm.
It was basically what Christians have done for the previous 2,000 years is you give expecting nothing in return. So the first step of morality is valuing human life. The second is to love your neighbor as yourself. Mm-hmm. So therefore, as a Christian, we've always been against Iran. So now that the morality has changed, the understanding of sin has changed, I think a mistake that Christians are making, and once again, I invite you all to give me input here, is I think they had the right view. I think the Israelis had the right view. I think the Christians had the right view. I think the conservatives had the right view. Morality has changed, so now we're devaluing the people that we're against. I think there was nothing wrong with being against them.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And because we don't value their lives anymore, it's okay to bomb them.
Yep. I think that's accurate.
So I think the way that we did it before was more appropriate.
Yep.
And so I don't think that there's any morality to starting a war.
Right.
I think from a non-Christian perspective, there is a degree of morality to ending a war. And if you would like to quote what you mentioned earlier with Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, Jimmy Carter's quote, he says, war sometimes is a necessary evil, but it's always evil.
Correct, right. So therefore, if it's always evil, then war is not something... I heard someone this morning say war should be a last option, not a first option.
Yes. Yeah.
So the war that we're in now makes no sense. Now, if there was a country that could have ignited a war, I would give... I'd rank Iran number 2, right behind Russia.
Russia, yeah.
Okay. But I don't think that just because they are abominable people, their government's the worst government in the world, what they spend their money on is bad, their civil rights were bad, that we should have gone. However, if we did go to defend the people that were getting killed in the streets, that might be better.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, I might be wrong, I think that had stopped when we bombed them. I don't think that they were killing the protesters at the time.
Yeah, I hadn't seen anything recent.
So I think part of the negotiations should be human rights, because they literally killed thousands of people. We should have demanded the inspectors get in,
Right.
and we should demand that they end their missile program and their
In
nuclear.
support of the terrorists.
Right, and that we should have a military base in Tehran. That's what I would have negotiated.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they said no to all of those demands,
Right.
then go to war.
Right.
If they agreed to most of those demands, then we just try our best.
Yeah.
But I think that we should have given that the best shot, no pun intended,
Right.
before we went there. And I think, in general, I think when you put fear as your morality, like the reason that we made China an enemy is we were afraid they were going to take us over.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that we're doing the tariffs is we're afraid that other people are going to benefit and that we're going to be left out in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the conservative fear. And then the liberal fears is that we think that if someone's older than us, they're going to manipulate us, they're going to hurt us. We feel that if a stranger comes into our house, they're going to steal from us, they're going to abduct us, they're going to abuse us. We fear that the cops are all corrupt and murderers and all going to kill people. We fear so our morality is based on avoiding these fears
Right.
rather than embracing.
Something good.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so as we was talking about the fear-based sense, we was talking about how Christians should be responding to war. And understand this, I want to save the Jews. Now, when you get into Romans, it says, "What shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead?" I can't help but wonder if Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego foreshadowed what could possibly save them, because the nation has their entire existence from surviving war,
Mm-hmm.
and then to get saved, you have to overcome war.
Mm-hmm.
So only God can do this. But now the Amish, we have reasons why we didn't become Amish. They weren't as strong as they were with Mormons. It was a philosophical reason, and sometimes I regret it. But I do think the closest example of Christianity in the world is the Plain people, the Amish type people, and they never participated in war.
Mm-hmm.
They turn the other cheek. They have a harmless community. Now, I'm not saying that there haven't been sins. I heard of a story of an Amish person that killed somebody, but
Mhm.
I've only heard that in recent times since the fall of the church age. I don't think there was ever an example of that, before, 67. And but now, fear dehumanizes people, and it actually attacks the golden rule, because say you're a young girl. We actually have a young girl, right? And say I need your help. The way that our morals are today, you wouldn't help me. Why? Because I'm a strong man. Say I'm a stranger. You're not going to help me because you're going to be afraid that I'm an axe murderer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So therefore, does that not overshadow love your neighbor as yourself
Mm-hmm.
in our moral system today?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then, say for instance, the Bible says you can't serve God and money. What is the number one reason that the majority of women want a career?
To support themselves in case something happened to their marriage or their husband.
Right. So then that becomes more important than loving the children,
Right.
right? Because what if we get divorced? What if the husband treats me bad? The what ifs are the fears,
Right.
okay? Rather than focus on the
How to be
positive
happy.
one. Right. Or being happy, right? Like traditionally, if you love your neighbor as yourself, you want your neighbor to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if that neighbor making them happy, like if you're really nice to someone, then you're afraid, oh, they might get the wrong idea,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm not going to be nice to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what if someone tells you that they love you? People say, oh, that's creepy,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I heard non-Christian guys, the guy that inspired me to start this YouTube channel, they were saying, yeah, nowadays you don't go and ask a girl, you don't cold call, you wait for her to approach you because they're going to think you're weird.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that kind of backwards
Yeah.
in society?
Right.
I remember they said that the man's supposed to be a leader, he's supposed to be the aggressor.
Right.
So in the old days, girls would do something to let the guy know that he can approach.
Yeah. Use the example of dropping the handkerchief so the guy can come over and pick it up.
So because of fear, we now say the women are in charge of dating,
Mm-hmm.
they're in charge of career, they're in charge of financing,
Mm-hmm.
and now that's all. Now, if it was a righteous thing, it would be good, but isn't all of that based on a fear?
Right.
You can't approach me because I'm worried you're a creep.
Mm-hmm.
I need to have my own career because I can't trust you to have a career. You
I need
can't,
to be in control
because I don't want to be controlled by a man, so I
Right.
have to be in charge.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So then once this thinking became more and more entrenched, we now have a place where we don't value other people.
Mm-hmm.
So then, like I said, is last week I was saying how I made a mistake when I didn't like a political candidate. I would say I don't like so and so,
Right.
right? Well,
That's not what you meant.
once I learned that when people say that, they actually mean that. I gotta do the
I don't
boring.
like the policy of so.
I gotta say I don't support the policies, and it sounds so stupid to say that,
Right.
but you actually need to say that.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I said I like Biden, everyone thought I liked the policies of Biden. What
Right.
about when he did this? What about when he,
Right.
is there anything wrong with me saying I think he's a good person? Actually, the people that are against him will not admit that he's a good person.
No, not even remotely.
Yeah. And or anything that was a good job. Or the people that are on the other side, like I said, is I have a relative that's liberal, and then I can quote the great things that the economy did under Biden better than anybody. But I said, the one thing he didn't do good economically is he didn't reduce the debt. Oh, no, what about Trump? Blah, blah, blah. It's like you see the same thing on both sides.
No, it wasn't an attack.
I like the guy. You know what I'm saying? I don't think anybody's perfect. I'm just simply saying this was one thing that the administration did not make progress. We can.
Yeah.
It's probably because they started off in the wake of COVID. I don't know.
Yeah, there's only like one president in the 20th century that, I think Clinton was the only one that had any positive on the debt.
Right, and I think that what we're doing now to the debt's way worse than what Biden did.
Yeah.
But needless to say, you shouldn't hate someone that has an opposing view to you
Right.
because they're still human beings.
And if you like something somebody did, doesn't mean you support everything they did.
This is why I go to the Kennedy Waltz analogy
Yeah.
for me personally, right? It's not like her and I agree with everything. I really don't hate her. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then I think when you like someone, it's good to try to find the good in what they do,
Mm-hmm.
because guess what? God is not into politics. So what does that mean?
We're not supposed to be in politics.
Okay, that's true. Okay, so because you're right and you didn't give the answer I want, I'll give the answer I want. It means that a political platform is not divinely inspired,
Yeah.
which means both sides are right and both sides are wrong.
Yeah.
So it's impossible for anyone other than God to be 100% right about any issue.
Mm-hmm.
So if we get passionate about a cause and someone disagrees with the cause, what we used to do is we say, are they smart? Are they a good person? Do they have a good reason for what they think? If the answer is yes to those three things, then guess what?
We're not against them.
No, we still might. We're not against them.
Right.
We might not be wrong, but that means that there's a good reason to disagree with us.
Right.
Okay, now if there's a good reason to disagree, then we might be wrong too.
We might need to shift our position.
We might need to shift. We might be wrong,
Mm-hmm.
or we might need to reapproach our opinion.
Yeah.
Like like we might have an opinion that's good that looks bad.
Right.
We might be wrong, or the
You
middle.
gotta reevaluate it.
Yes, it needs to be reevaluated. Now, then, if we reevaluate it and we find that we're right, but they're a good person and they see it differently, it's okay.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like I give the analogy in Ethiopia where the actor, Matt Damon dug wells, and I wanted to help people with food. Both things are good.
Right.
It doesn't mean that what he was doing was bad. And like I said, I was later humbled. I felt that. So I first learned he's doing a good thing. I felt it wasn't as good as what I'm doing, and then after I'd done it, I then realized the opposite was true. What he's doing is more beneficial to human life than just simply giving food. It's not that you're necessarily teaching them how to fish, but you're
Right.
supplying. He's
Yeah.
supplying them with fish,
A permanent supply.
and then I was wanting to give some food that's gone.
Right.
The moment that you're done. So now if you recognize that he's done this, and now we know he's a liberal and say we're a conservative, we can't say he's a bad person.
Right.
Anyone that goes around giving people water is a good person.
Right.
Or at least they got something good in them.
Right.
Okay, so I'd always been a conservative politically and have different political views than these people. So like during Hurricane Katrina, when I learned that Brad Pitt went and donated millions of dollars to rebuild homes, I never once thought he was bad for doing that. You know, like I admire the generosity, and I'm humbled by the generosity. So then his politics were different. It's impossible that the politics are all bad. So I think when you have the fear culture, you say, this is the most important election of all time. You think that if your opponent gains power, that your life is going to be destroyed. And I've been guilty of thinking that myself, and I'm embarrassed that I thought it, right? And it's easy to think, and it's not true, okay? You know, people that have different opinions can be smart, can be good, and things being governed differently than how you want. Yes, if you're a good person, some bad can happen, but there also can be some good that happens too.
Right.
Like, so I think this this fear morality, when you look at a teenage girl that wants to isolate the world into everybody her age, that might not seem harmful, but when you take it to the point when we're devaluing people that are different, then people start to die.
Right.
So the first step is that we create social isolation through social discriminations. Okay? And the social discriminations came from fear.
Right.
Whereas during the 70s era of entertainment and beauty, it was confidence. It's like, ooh, I can have it all.
Yeah.
I can have the most beautiful girl in the world. I can have 5 beautiful wives. We could all love each other. We don't need to get married. We could just have orgies all day, and we can make all kinds of money, right? And then now it's, oh my God, I'm going to be violated. I'm going to be killed, you know. So now we have like this, so the fun's taken out of it, right? And then now we're devaluing people. So we're saying that the people that are different deserve to go to jail, they deserve to die, or in the case of the immigrants, they deserve to all be deported. And then on the liberal side, we don't care if they're isolated because, you know, I don't need to like them. They're not someone that I want in my life. I'm afraid of these people. It is icky. This person's creepy. This person's bad. This person has money, so they must be greedy and selfish, taking advantage of people. Oh, this person's poor. Okay, I care about the poor, but they're going to stink. I don't want to be around someone that stinks. This person is conservative. I'll never spend time with a conservative. I don't want to be around someone who's too liberal. I don't want to be around someone that my friends don't like, and so on and so forth. So the liberals have the I don't want to blank, and then the conservatives are saying these people are bad, so they need to be punished. This is not sustainable. We need a different voice. We need a different morality in the world, or the world is going to end, which is prophesied is going to happen. And so the Christian response to sin is that we need morality based on the commandments. We need, you know, the 10 commandments: thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, love your neighbor as yourself, or some of the commandments in the New Testament, to turn the other cheek, to be content with what you have, to, you know, if a man sue the law, take away thy coat, give him the cloak also. The love thy neighbor as thyself is obviously written in the law, but it was more prominent in the New Testament. It was declared to be the second most commandment. Entertain strangers unaware. You know, we need to actually be aware of the righteousness of the commandments to have the right sensitivity to the sin, and the righteousness of the commandments are all rooted in love for your fellow man, and the fear, which is the opposite of faith, is all based on self-protection. And I think the obsession with self-protection has created greed, isolation. That's what's already happening. And now we're in the process of the greed and isolation turning into annihilation of people that are perceived as different. And the cancel culture, which has been both a liberal and a conservative issue, is part of this.
Right.
Like if we give money to this group, then they're going to overpower. You know?
Right.
Basically, if we do this, then this problem is going to happen, is the complete opposite of resist not evil. If a man smite thee on the left cheek, turn him the right.
Yeah.
Okay? So the turning the other cheek principle is the complete opposite of fear. Loving your neighbor as yourself is the complete opposite of fear. Being the good Samaritan, you can't be fearful and be the good Samaritan, and you need to have forgiveness for all, because if you go back to the beginning of today's messages, we're all capable of the same sins. So if we want to be forgiven for our sins, then we need to forgive other people's sins.
Right.
The other thing that I learned is, like, my father holds grudges even on things that he's wrong about. So like, he can think you did something bad and he's going to hold that against you for 40 years even if you didn't do it. So I learned that you can't just forgive when you think the other person was wrong. If you have a true heart of forgiveness, you got to be able to forgive a person even if you're wrong. And you're not going to know if you're wrong unless you offer unconditional forgiveness. You know, like say you do something wrong and you do something wrong, in my mind, right? If I forgive you, then I'm gonna say, hey, you know, this is no big deal. We can still be friends. We can forget about that. It's good, right?
Right.
Then I get to know you better, and then you might I might understand why you did something.
Right.
So it might be that you were wrong and you weren't, or it might be you both weren't wrong.
Right.
I'm not God.
Right.
So therefore, if I perceive that you're wrong, if I, in order to obey the golden rule, not only do I need to forgive you because I need forgiveness the same as you,
Right.
but I need forgiveness in order to learn if
That
you
you're
were
wrong.
if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I don't think people talk about that part of forgiveness enough.
No.
And because there's been times, I wish, I'm not saying that I don't remember it, not, forgive me if it sounds arrogant, I just can't think of a good example right now. There have been times where I've forgiven people and I found out I was wrong.
Yeah.
You know, this has happened to me before.
Of course.
And so, but I don't believe it's ever happened to my father before. But needless to say, our morality needs to be based on faith. Faith-based morality is based on goodness versus evil. And I know that everyone thinks that their morality is based on goodness and evil, but I think if you're a younger person in this country, if you are younger than 35, I believe you've been brainwashed into sincerely believing fear is the key form of morality.
Yeah.
And you need to understand that if you have, not that everything that's fearful is wrong. There are
Right.
people that are child abductors, there are bad situations, and we have learned more things to avoid because we've obsessed with fear. But I think that faith works a lot better for wholeness of a person, for growth of a person, and happiness of a person. And if you don't value your life on this earth as much because you want to be a citizen of heaven, then you're not as afraid of a negative consequence as you are if you have no faith.
Right.
Okay, so that concludes the YouTube discussion of the Christian response to immoral sins. Now, next week, we're going to start a study on what I consider discipleship sins, sins that hinder your redemption but are not necessarily harmful to self or harmful to others. So the first type of sin, harmful to self, and we spent 2 weeks on sins that are harmful, are self-destructive, and how those things eventually there was another topic that Bennett addressed in the first week I said I'd get to that I haven't, is that, okay, if you're doing a self-destructive sin, it eventually harms other people.
The example.
Well, there's a couple examples I'd like to give. So, like, if you go with the one that we was talking about, okay, is I gave the positive example of why I like Kennedy Walsh, right? But the negative thing, if as we're seeing, as with Gen Z, like a third of them are gay or bisexual, then it actually erodes society a little bit, because then you don't feel as much excitement for people of the opposite sex. You don't feel the confidence that you can have a family. People don't value chastity as much. So so the sin itself is not harming another person, but when it gets into, widespread use, and then if you take the drug addiction, we have, I've heard stories that we have like 15% of people in New Hampshire have an addiction to drugs. You then, like, I don't know about you, but I don't feel as comfortable giving money to poor people.
Right. Yeah, I feel violated by that damage too.
Yeah, because they go eat at the soup kitchen, and it almost creates selfishness, because if you bought them a house, the house is going to get destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy them a car, the car is going to get destroyed.
They'd probably sell the car tomorrow.
To buy drugs. Yeah, and so basically, like, because the drug epidemic has affected so many people, that it causes people to not feel as righteous to help the poor.
Yeah.
It causes people to, and then we just talked about the fear culture.
Right.
Is that some, like, some people could have legitimate fears of, like a lot, like, I know a lot of honest drug addicts that end up becoming thieves to steal.
Right.
So people don't dare help someone or give them a ride or help
You
people.
gotta lock up your car, lock up your stuff.
Yeah, for some reason the convenience stores won't let us just walk into bathrooms anymore.
Right.
Because of.
People OD in the bathroom or something.
Well, the one thing I don't understand is I even heard this morning people condemning California for all the homeless people. When I was there, I was in all the places that they said, and I saw a couple. It wasn't that bad.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm desensitized to it because I have homeless people that work for me. But I saw, like, I don't know, every morning I'd walk in downtown LA and I'd see about a half a dozen. I see a half a dozen a lot of times around here. But needless to say, a lot of people, are afraid of the homeless people. Then if you take this idea of political polarization, like, if you're really trying to fit in, you end up disliking people that are different.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, say you're a Republican, then you say, do you think Hillary Clinton should go to jail? Yes, she should go to jail. Well, I mean, this way of thinking caused Nancy Pelosi's husband to almost get killed.
Right.
And then people on the left. Well, then now you're getting to the point with Trump. He's actually doing things that he should go to jail for. There were some of the things they put against him that were probably, I think that, like, the Russiagate and all that stuff, he probably didn't do anything didn't do much wrong in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Democrats, they should have held out, because they got plenty of stuff now.
Right.
But I think that that basically. So say you're on a political side. I question this. I don't have the answer, but if you're watching this video, this would be a good thing to comment on. Is take the two video murders. Take the Renee Good and Alex Preddy, right? I'm not sure that you can justify those murders and be as good a person as you were before.
Mm-hmm.
I think when your side stoops to a level where people are dying,
Right.
then I think it's more than just self-destructive.
Yeah.
I think it then has a destructive societal impact
Mm-hmm.
that lowers the morality
Yeah.
of everybody. And I think it's not just people on the right that justify the murders, because say you're on the left and you're outraged by this, then you start hating people on the right.
Right.
And then that lowers who you are as a person.
Right.
And then if you're on the right and you're devaluing, people's lives because they're on the wrong side of the issue,
Right.
or devaluing countries because they're countries that are in opposition to us, then I think when the self-destructive sin manifests itself, it then gets to a point where it harms other people.
Yeah.
If it didn't, I don't think the Bible would ever have condemned them in the first place.
Right.
I think they start off, they don't really hurt other people. Then once the Bible says a little leaven leavens the lump.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the self-destructive sins, alcoholism has ruined families.
Right.
It has caused people to get into fistfights. It's caused
kids grow up all screwed up because the parents drank.
and sometimes in some cases they're born screwed up.
Yeah.
Because they don't develop right in the womb.
Fetal
Right?
alcohol.
Yeah, fetal alcohol. So every single self-destructive sin when it gets manifested, can lead to the ultimate sin. That's why sin separates us from God.
Yeah.
That's why, as a Christian, we need to overcome the sins.
Right.
But the reason for this series on teaching the Christian response for sin, though, is even though the self-destructive sins lead to the destructive ones, and we're now seeing that in on the news every day,
Mm-hmm.
it still is different, though.
Right.
Okay? So being closed-minded is not the same thing as stealing.
Right.
Slandering someone's name is not as bad as being cold emotionally and socially discriminating against somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, murdering someone is worse than being on the wrong side of a political issue.
Yeah.
Okay, but all of those self-destructive sins they devalue society as a whole.
Right.
They destroy families, and they lead to the first level.
Yeah.
And I had said I was going to do that last week, but you had mentioned this a couple weeks ago, so I thought you wanted me to,
Yep.
to validate that. Okay, so now that concludes this, and as I said, we're on a different topic next week, but it's still a topic of sin. I'll leave it for you to think about. It's sins that are not immoral.
Yeah. Sins of omission.
Right. And it goes, Dear God, I pray that you give us all the right understanding of fruit, righteousness, morality, immorality, and that you broaden our minds. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.